The clutch comes out of this tube. It's a cable that rides on that pulley. Like I said, this isn't this cable's first time breaking. What's up, you guys? FSC Speed Shop. You know, for all the videos I've been doing in the past, I never really thought to mention this. Hi, how are you? My name's Steve. For whatever reason, I never thought to mention my name. I'm your humble host, Steve Festjack, host of FSC Speed Shop. FSC Speed Shop, Festjack Speed and Custom Shop right here in Freedom, Wisconsin. Right here behind me is my truck, Orwell. Orwell is a 1984 Peterbilt 362, obviously a cabover, and since the last video, we took the cab up. Why is it called Orwell? Well, if you ever read the book 1984, you might have an idea of my mindset as far as today's condition in the trucking industry. This truck also happens to be in 1984. The two work. Orwell wrote the book, Peterbilt built the truck, and I own both the book and the truck. Orwell it is. In one of my previous videos, we were getting unloaded, and then when we left there to go back to the yard and drop the trailer, I was debating on whether I was going to run another short load or not before Thanksgiving and actually hunting season prior to Thanksgiving. Well, when I stepped on the clutch pulling out of the driveway, it said no. I stepped on the clutch and it didn't, well, the pedal went straight to the floor, but it didn't disengage. So I had to drive the truck back that way with no clutch. Now, that's not the hardest thing in the world to do, but you do have to know a little bit of what you're doing. A few videos back, I had explained to you guys, because a lot of you guys don't know how to drive a manual one of these and don't know how to do it without using your clutch. It's called floating, and I did a video on how to do that a little bit. It wasn't a big in-depth thing, but I showed you it can be done. That's all I do, to be honest. I don't think I could double clutch if I tried nowadays. I guess that means I can't pass a CDL test. I guess I'll retire. Okay, yeah, right. All right, with that being said, it is possible to drive a truck with no clutch. You just have to know what you're doing. As far as I'm concerned, I've done it for the last 23 years. You only need a clutch in a semi-truck to start and stop. Oh, wait, those automatic transmissions? What do you think that does? They're not really automatics. All they do is it's servos that do the same thing your gear shift does. And it doesn't double clutch. It just matches your RPM to where the gear is and puts it in, same as I do. So your automatics really float them the same way I do. Anyway, we're getting on into a tangent of the trucking industry, and it's really not what I'm here for. You simply shut the engine off, put the transmission in the lowest gear possible, release your brakes prior to doing the next step. The next step is reach down and hit your starter. The starter will turn the engine over and fire it up with the truck in gear. It'll start rolling. As soon as you do, start floating your gears from one all the way up, you're good. Coming to a dead stop, try to plan your stops. In other words, if you see a red light up ahead, it'll piss people off behind you, but they'll get over it. Slow down way early. Start gearing down. Start going from 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, all the way down. Maybe you won't have to come to a complete stop. The light will go green and you'll just roll through, same as always. If you do have to come to a complete stop, right before you do, just pop your throttle, pop it in neutral, and then come to a stop. Once it's time to get going again, you wash, rinse, repeat. Maintain your brakes released, turn your engine off, put it in low gear, turn it on, fire it up, and drive away like you always do, this time floating them as you go. This truck doesn't have a neutral safety switch, so I could literally just reach in, turn the key, and fire it. Newer trucks, even my son's Dodge behind this truck here, you have to step on the clutch. Even newer trucks, even my son's Dodge pickup over here, Mr. Beefy, you have to step on the clutch in order to get the starter to turn it over. Well, when that clutch failed, I still was able to put the pedal down even though it didn't disengage. By the way, I brought that truck home the exact same manner. You simply step on the clutch just to get the switch to recognize, okay, the clutch is released. It's really not, because the switch is in your cab. Just because the pedal is against the floor doesn't mean the clutch is disengaged. In this truck's case, the clutch pedal stays on the floor, which trips the micro switch in the dash to think I'm stepping on the clutch, and the only thing that switch cares about is to not run the Jake brakes when I'm stepping on the clutch. That way it won't stall the engine at a bone idle. Because why would you be on your clutch if you're not at a bone idle? Well, burnouts, but we're not. No, that's a different video. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into what happened with Orwell and why my clutch doesn't work. Let's dig in. Now, Orwell obviously is a cabover. The clutch pedal doesn't work on a linkage as you would think. See right here, since the cab is up, you can see the shifter mechanism which goes up to this gearbox, and in that gearbox then goes to the shifter in the cab. This right here is your throttle. That comes in and out to work your throttle. When that comes down, it attaches with this lever, and this is your throttle. Right here is your steering sector shaft and your gearbox. With the cab up, you can see that shaft is extended. That blue would normally be up inside this rusty gray, but with the cab up, it shows you the blue. So every linkage, everything has to either bend with wires or hose or work in a linkage that will raise with the cab. Now, the clutch on this is different. Come around the front, I'll show you. The clutch comes out of the cab through this little tube. We're standing in the, here's the radiator, the cab is half up. The clutch comes out of this tube. It's a cable that rides on that pulley. That way the clutch doesn't lengthen or shorten when the cab is up or down. It simply rides around that pulley. What happened is this cable broke. It doesn't do crap anymore. That cable will ride next to the frame. There's actually another pulley deep down against the frame, and this cable was already broken once before. Come around here to the inside of the frame, you'll see over here the transmission. Trying to move my light. That cable pulls that clutch arm in. Oh yeah, that works great. Come around here to the inside the frame, and that cable works to this clutch arm right here. So you pull on it, and that works your clutch into your transmission. Like so. See if I can work it for you. That works your clutch. Up here, move my light. Up here you'll see where the frame, this is your shifter linkage. See your broken cable right here? It broke once before, and somebody had patched it with these pieces of cable tie. It was shortened, and that's why it didn't go around that other pulley that's down in the frame. And there's your frayed end. Now, Peterbilt no longer sells the clutch cable for these. As you can see, it kind of has a special end to it. It hooks up to basically a hind joint. Now, I'm thinking that I can get that local merch and hook it up to however it hooks to the clutch pedal itself. But for now, I got to figure out how to take that apart and get that piece made or make one myself. And that is where this video might get a little on the interesting side, because I now have to make parts that are no longer available. I kind of specialize in that. Might not be the best or most complicated things on planet Earth, but I'm getting pretty good at that type of stuff over the years. My dad calls it MacGyvering from the TV show. I'm one of the best at that, I think. My dad does his stuff out of wood. I usually do it out of metal. Let's see how I do. I think I got it. Yeah! Like I said, this isn't this cable's first time breaking. Now, how do I change this? What a mess. Yuck. I've tried to save you guys the boredom of taking the interior apart, but that's the clutch pedal, and that's how it works. That's all the way up, that's to the floor. And you can see the micro switch here, which turns on and off the Jake brakes upon release the clutch. It would be on, Jake's would be off. So now I got to take that hind joint apart and figure out how to get that a new cable through. So let's go ahead and do that now. been between 1 and 2 months since we took the clutch cable out, and in that time I went and had a new one made. I had to get a cable made. You couldn't just call Peterbilt and says, hey, I need a new clutch cable. The other issue was the ends of the clutch cable don't exactly appear to fit through the conduit that goes from the clutch cable down to the first pulley, which is right down here. So how do we do that? Well, the answer was a 2-piece cable that I went ahead and had made. The adjustment rods are longer than what this particular place usually deals with, so they had to get them custom made. Now down in either Neenah or Menasha was a place called All Lift. Now what All Lift specializes in is crane stuff. Big stuff, little stuff, like the big huge cranes you see down to the little things. And they custom made me cable ends. So what I did was I had 2 pieces made. One from the cable down towards the transmission and another much shorter piece from the transmission forward. That way I can then get the length proper and make the 2 cables one big long one instead. That way I can get the length proper. The original cable was approximately 121 inches long. However, as you've seen, it wasn't routed in there properly through the frame like it's supposed to, utilizing both cables. Somebody had just patched it. So with that, let's go ahead and start installation. These are the new cables. This is the transmission end with the new piece that they crimped on the cable for me. And I don't believe this will go through the conduit, so I had it made in 2 pieces. The other side here, which is zip tied to it, this is from the clutch pedal that I'll snake the cable end through the conduit and then make them with these 2 hammer-on junctions. I also have 2 others that I can tighten and loosen with a wrench so I can get the proper adjustment before I go ahead and cinch these down permanently. So now let's go ahead and crawl inside and snake the cable through and make sure. This piece here is what attached to the transmission, and that's what attached to this part right here, which is much thinner. It's not much more than just a simple hind joint and a spacer made out of an aluminum block. By the way, the aluminum block is fine thread. But this is how it attaches to the cable itself. Now this cable I made short, that way I can do my cable mending underneath the truck where there's room. So this is the short piece of cable right here. This is the longer piece of cable. Same high joint as before, but this bolts to the clutch pedal itself and goes through that conduit. It's a much longer length of cable. I'll string this through the truck and run it properly along the frame through those 2 pulleys. But first we'll go ahead and send this through the conduit so you can see how it works. Now I'm going to take the long cable and string it through the conduit and catch it on the bottom side so I can run it through the cable where it belongs. Obviously it's gone plenty. You can't simply just put the cable here because there's a steel tab that holds the cable to the pulley. So what you do is you fish the cable back up. I suppose you could take that tab off, but why bother? With a little bit of finger control and working by braille, lift the cable up and then slide it in. And then in towards the direction of the next pulley, which will direct it a little lower than what it was. There, tighten it down. Now when we pull the cable, this will pull it down. You see how your clutch, when you step on it, lifts up on the cable. Oh, look at that. Haha. Excellent. Now hopefully that'll be okay. It doesn't really turn a lot, just enough. Now what I'm doing, hopefully can show it to you while I do it, is attaching the clutch linkage with the spacer onto the clutch rod itself that goes into the transmission. I added a little bit of oil to the threads because that spacer block is made of aluminum, and I had to get it out with the impact gun. It was quite tight. Now if I tighten it and bring this rod up higher like so, the cable doesn't rub this motor mount right here. See, it bounces nicely, and it doesn't rub anything under here. There is like a cable clamp back here that held some kind of hose at one point, but even back here, it doesn't rub on anything. Doesn't touch any wiring. It just goes nice and clean and down the length of the frame up to this shift linkage right there. Not the linkage. Up to this clutch arm right here, as you see. I tried to crawl underneath to get you guys a better view of what it looks like under the shock, not touching any of the cables and wires. There's the starter, obviously, and your shift rod, your clutch arm right here. By the way, there's also an adjustment on the clutch arm right there as well. I've loosened the linkage off the transmission again, and I adjusted the cable with this here. I could loosen this and tighten it as I need. So now I have these two collars that I'm going to hammer down solid. What I'm going to do as a backup is I'm going to put these two in the middle here and then trim the cables. But I have it to the right length. That was a little bit of luck there because I was needing a clutch adjustment, so with very little play left in the pedal, I was able to duplicate that to get the right length. Once I get this done, I'm going to go ahead and do the clutch adjustment. But it was able to give me a good idea of where I should start before I start messing with the adjustments on it. So now it's real basic and simple from what they told me, is just hammer these flat on a hard surface. Well, I happen to have a nice hard surface right here, the frame. I'm going to go ahead and pound this down with the hammer against my frame without breaking my camera. Supposedly that will be strong enough. It appears to be. So now, with that set, go ahead and do this one. Now what I'm going to do is carefully cut the extra cable right at the crimp sheath. Watch your eyes, boys and girls. Worrying about what holds a plate on. So once the plate is down, now what we have to do is position the clutch in where there'll be a adjustment bolt that I have to take out. Hey Matt, yes. Make sure it's in neutral. You good? Yeah. Turn the key on. Bump the starter. A little harder. Again. Don't move. Turn it up. Just to give it a little tap. Never mind. That's fine.
Cut it off?
Yeah, again, cut her off. Take this fork piece off by taking that 9/16 bolt out. There is a tool for this. I do have it. If I remember, I'll put a picture up so you can see that I do have that tool. But this clutch is very stubborn, and when you get stubborn, that tool won't be able to be used, so you use an air chisel. Now what you have to do is have somebody actually hold the clutch in while you make your adjustment. As you can see, there's some pressure on this little tab here. Knock it around a little bit. And out it comes. As I drop it. That's what it looks like. It just holds that piece from turning. Press on the clutch. Press on the clutch. How's it feel now? Give a little bit more.
Yep.
Step on the clutch?
I did.
Okay. What I'm going to go do now before I go ahead and put the upholstery back in the inside of the truck is I want to start the truck and make sure my clutch brake actually works, making sure I have the right cable length. Then I can mess with the adjustment later. Of course, it's been off for quite a long time, so it might not want to start. Apparently it starts without a problem. I lengthen the cable, or rather I shorten the cable a little bit. That should bring the clutch brake in quicker. If we have to, we'll adjust the actual clutch adjustment after the fact. Still got a good amount of play. Perfect. Now I can put the interior back together, and once I do that, well, I'm not going to show you putting the interior back together, that's boring.